All the trouble I've caused, the pain, the death, it all started with a breakthrough. I'm an artist, a painter by trade, and also an inventor. I like to spend some of my spare time experimenting by creating new colors. It's a hobby, but I also make some money on the side, primarily through a shade of purple I made that's marginally popular, as well as an ultra dark shade of black. That one's fun because it looks really weird in everyday life to see a coffee mug or a t-shirt that's unnaturally colorless, like someone's wearing a black hole or something. But this new color is different. I call it grurple. The name's dumb, I know, but it's got my last name buried in it, and it's a combination of the other words, green and purple. That makes sense because that's what the color is. Except that doesn't describe it well enough. The thing is, people have combined those two colors before. It just turns into an ugly brownish black barf sort of hue that nobody would want to use for anything. But this is different. It retains the essence of green and purple. Makes something never before seen and amazing with them in the process. It's like looking at a rainbow for the first time. It's startling, otherworldly. But since I've been creating it, I've been seeing things. And the things I've been seeing, they're all the same color. Grurple. My laptop, for instance, I turned it off because the colors had begun to look strange and the problem had proved to be incorrectable. That was when I saw movement in the corner of my blank screen, the reflection of something sliding just out of view at the edge. I looked over my shoulder, saw there was nothing there. I left my room, went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. The computer could be fixed, I thought to myself. I'd just take it over to my friend Dave's place since he always knew what to do with computer problems. In the reflection of the bathroom mirror, I saw the tub was no longer the old-fashioned shade of horrible, out-of-fashion pink that it had been before, the one it had always been since I moved in. The bathtub was now grurple. It was as if someone had come into my own home and replaced my bathtub with someone else's. Of course, that was impossible. My hands started to tremble, my heartbeat quickening as I felt like the world was beginning to turn sideways on its axis. I tried to calm myself down, focusing on my breathing, focusing on anything that wasn't the bathtub. The bathroom mirror was dirty, so I decided to quickly clean it to distract myself. As I finished wiping it off, I saw something in the corner of the glass surface slipping just out of view as my eye noticed it. Just like earlier in the computer monitor's reflection, the slender, pointed tail of a lizard. That's how it looked anyways. I went out into the hallway to check if a stray Komodo dragon had snuck into my house somehow. But again, there was nothing. I couldn't help but think that the color of whatever it was looked familiar, though. Whatever it was that same strange, otherworldly shade of grurple. I got the impression of something looming and large, crafty and elusive, its skin rough and thick like that of a dinosaur. Suddenly it was there again at the periphery of my vision, but upon inspection I saw only empty space. Nearby I could sense something enormous, awful, like a storm head rolling in. I decided to get out of the house and left with my laptop to walk over to Dave's place. He was only a few blocks over. It was a sunny day outside, humid and clear. I immediately wished I had brought my sunglasses. Decided not to go back for them. It was a short walk. As I ambled down the street, lugging my heavy old laptop, I started to have more and more trouble seeing. The sun was so bright I found myself blinking repeatedly, then having more and more difficulty opening my eyes each time. My vision became reduced, and momentary glimpses between each blink until my eyes simply forced themselves closed and I couldn't see at all anymore. The only thing I could see was the new color I'd created that filled my vision instead of the usual darkness when I blinked. didn't know where I was, only that I'd been walking on the sidewalk a moment before. There was no shade nearby, and I was stranded, completely blind in the middle of my walk. Unfortunately for me, I had unwittingly crossed into the roadway and was no longer on the sidewalk, but standing in the middle of a busy intersection. Suddenly, someone tackled me, landing on me and sending me flying. I heard a car's tires squealing, smelled burnt brake pads, a loud bang, and the crunch of crunching metal and breaking glass. Then people were yelling at me. "What the hell were you doing standing in the road like that? You should be dead," came the chorus from people all around. I was in the ditch, and my vision came back suddenly, and I had no trouble seeing, as fear and adrenaline took over my body. 2 cars were mangled and wrapped together in the roadway where they had crashed into each other. The drivers were both bloodied and unconscious in their seats, and people were pulling them out as a fire started to spread from the engine of one vehicle. "I couldn't see," I told them. Nobody listened. Police came, took a statement from me. The officer gave me a tongue lashing I would never forget. I told him it was sun blindness, which was true, I suppose. They let me off without a charge of public endangerment causing bodily harm. Thankfully, everyone survived. Nobody had any lasting effects from the accident. But if it hadn't been for the stranger who'd pushed me out of the way, I would have been dead. He wasn't too impressed with my behavior either. My laptop was a write-off. I limped home with a quickly swelling, twisted ankle. When I got back there, I could sense it waiting for me. It was like I could hear its breathing. I could feel the creature I had brought forth with my invention. Terrified, I decided I needed to destroy it. There's something wrong with that color. It was not meant for this world. I could tell that already. The experimental batches of grurple down in my studio in the basement. I rushed down there. The hairs on the back of my neck stood as I felt the thing following behind me. I was too afraid to look back. As I raced down the stairs, I nearly tripped, my bad ankle giving out on me as I hobbled down the wooden steps. My studio just ahead as I raced inside. Went to my locked cabinet where I stored all my experimental work. The paintings I had done in the new color were there, as well as the jars containing the hue itself. It was a shame to destroy it, but it had to be done. It wasn't supposed to be here. I should have never brought it into existence. Pouring paint down the drain is a really bad idea, but I was desperate. So I went over to the sink with a small test batch and opened it, tilting the container to dump it out. But then a voice, stopped me and my skin went ice cold. Goosebumps spreading across. "How did you define my colors?" hissed the thing from behind me, from the shadows. It wasn't real. The monster, it wasn't real. I just had to pour out the paint, but something was stopping me. My eyes were drawn to the test paintings I had done. One of them stood out among the rest. I found myself setting down the jar of paint and looking at it. I couldn't remember painting it. The image showed a beast, colored vividly in grurple. It shone and reflected the light back at me, making me think of things, awful things, beautiful things. I couldn't tell the difference between them after a while as they flashed before my eyes. A dead girl at the bottom of a well. Roses in bloom. Roadkill with maggots. Bloated corpse coming in with the tide. Rotten skin being peeled from a hand like a banana. Lemon meringue pie. A sunset over the ocean. Broken fingernails on the inside of a coffin lid. "How did you manage to paint me? Did you see me in a vision? For when you made this, I had not yet been to see you. You summoned me, in a way, with this." A long talon on an even longer finger reached out and pointed at the image I had made, the one I had forgotten making. I could feel the thing behind me. It's breathing hot on my neck. Over the years, I have been called many things. They have called me Shara, Azrael, Shiva, and Anubis. I have never seen a depiction as striking as this, though. You perfectly captured my essence. Thank you, I croaked. Why don't you do more of these? It would be a shame to waste such a precious talent as yours. My hand hesitated, and I found myself not wanting to destroy the paint after all. I'd wanted to use it. There was an image I had always wanted to depict, and the paint would be perfect for it. I just knew it. I set up my easel and began to draw, then prime, then laid down the great big blocks of color that would be my greatest work to date. The piece consumed my life for 3 days. For 72 hours, I did nothing but paint. But once it was complete, I knew it was the best thing I'd ever made. The image depicted Chiron, the ferryman from Greek mythology. He was taking someone across the river Styx from our world into the underworld, the afterlife. The ferryman himself was richly painted in my new color. You should share it with the world, the voice said again, and I found myself wanting to do as he suggested. So I did. I took it to the galleries, and the first few people who saw it didn't really like it as much as I did. Despite an excellent composition, the consensus among them was that the color of Chiron was off. The color of him looked just like a brownish-black barf sort of hue. They didn't see the new color for some reason. So I brought it to more galleries, circling out further and further from my home until I found one owner. I showed it to him, and I saw that he really saw it. The well-dressed man immediately exclaimed in delight and took it from my hands, holding the piece up to inspect it. Fawning over it, he told me how much he loved the painting and insisted on buying it for himself. He looked mesmerized and couldn't take his eyes from the piece. I'll pay any price, he said, reaching for his checkbook. I wanted to work with him more, so I gave him a reasonable price, told him I would be back. I would have plenty more paintings to share with him, all with similar subject matter. The thought had occurred to me that I needed to do a series of paintings focused on Chiron, and that would require a lot more paint. A couple more gallons would suffice, I told myself. So I ordered my supplies, and within a week, I had another large batch of grurple made up. My next paintings were similar to the first. I rarely slept or ate anymore. I just worked in my studio nonstop. The pounds were shedding from me, and I needed to make more notches on my belt pretty soon just to keep my pants up. The only thing that seemed important was painting. That is, until I called the gallery and heard the news. Turned out the owner of the place who had bought my painting of Chiron was dead. He committed suicide. Stopped leaving his house, becoming more and more isolated and catatonic, doing nothing but staring at the painting. Till one day he had slit his wrist in front of it, positioned his furniture to lean up against it so that he could die while sitting up, admiring the painting. Green and purple, purple and green. Life and death, death and life. I've thought about this more and more now. It's hard to want to paint when you know that your work will kill someone. Maybe not everyone, but those who can truly see what lies beneath the colors, what glimmers back in the reflections. I'm afraid of what this has caused, what my work has brought out, terrified of what will come of it. But part of me still seems intent on showing it to others. How about you? Do you want to see a sample of my work?